Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star episode number 452 based on novel. So let's start. The godly eye in the sky kept giving out an enhanced mental shock, making it more and more difficult for soldiers to resist the attacks. No. Shu Song could feel that he was losing his consciousness under the effect of the godly eye. Stay conscious. For the love of God, stay conscious. He took a look at the golden claw god flying like a streak of black light. It didn't slow down at all. Stay conscious. Conscious. Shu Song couldn't have been more apprehensive. However, it was apparent that his mind was crumbling as the mental shock was being strengthened. Under the shock, he couldn't fly smoothly anymore. He transmitted his voice at the last moment of his life. Milky Way. I shouldn't have done that. I was wrong. Spare my life. Spare my life. Golden Claw God Luo Feng immediately caught up with Shu Song. Die? Luo Feng's claw slashed at the giant white bird, and beneath that single attack, the giant white bird started to plummet. Hong. Long. The giant white bird dropped onto the plane, and Luo Feng landed beside it. Luo Feng looked at the giant bird, known as Bib Bird, which had already lost consciousness. The soldiers fighting in the distance looked toward him, and they all knew that the soldier lying there was crumbling and would soon be destroyed by the godly eye. It would definitely leave some valuables behind, yet none of them dared to fight Luo Feng for them. A trace of purple light shot out of the godly eye and struck Bib Bird. Suddenly, Shu Song, under the protection of its machine-type valuable, was annihilated. Only some pieces of armor, space bracelets, and machine-type valuables were left. Luo Feng waved his hands and claimed all the valuables left. He surged and rushed toward the soldiers who were fighting each other. The number of soldiers was plummeting. 28. 26. 23. Soldiers kept dying, some killed by the godly eye and others killed by fellow soldiers. Scram, a voice rumbled, and Golden Claw God Luo Feng turned into a streak of light, dashing toward a soldier who had been killed by the godly eye, seeking to seize the valuables left behind. It's that soldier, Milky Way. That soldier, Milky Way. 3 soldiers were racing toward the fallen valuables, but they all fled when they saw that Luo Feng was heading in the same direction. If they had been right next to the fallen valuables, they might have stood a chance of getting them. However, they were relatively far away, and even if they could get a step ahead, they would have been overtaken by that soldier Milky Way. Then it would be a nightmare for all of them. Of the 2 soldiers who gained the most valuables, one was Luo Feng, and the other was the plant life form. In fact, the plant soldier had claimed more valuables than Luo Feng. The area only had a diameter of 1 billion kilometers, yet the plant life form soldier alone was almost 100 million kilometers tall. After spreading out its branches, it covered a large area, so it easily claimed many valuables with that advantage. Suddenly, the most beautiful flower on the plant life form cried out in a shrill voice. No! It can't be! Die! Die! All of you! Die? The plant life form soldier was quite powerful in some aspects. However, the mind shock from the godly eye in the sky made it difficult for it to survive. As a plant life, it had a great advantage when it came to fighting, so it hadn't sharpened its willpower well enough. Although its willpower had reached the level of a true god, it was only mediocre compared to other elite soldiers. No? No, it realized it couldn't resist any longer. Its will was crumbling. All the soldiers in the distance looked toward the plant soldier. It's dying. It can't hold it anymore. They tried to stay back, but they all watched greedily, knowing that it had gathered the most machine-type valuables. Luo Feng was floating in the sky, watching. No. Die. Die, all of you, roared the plant soldier, slashing with its branches. Each branch had flowing golden light on it. They swept back and forth, trying to kill more soldiers. However, the soldiers all stayed as far away from it as possible. Those who still survived had only lost a small portion of their power, so even if they were ensnared by the plant soldier, they wouldn't die quickly. No! The flying branches were all drawn down, followed by a shriek. Apparently, it had lost its consciousness. Huh? Luo Feng's eyes gleamed. He immediately surged, racing toward the plant life form like a streak of light. Other soldiers also flew toward it. They all longed for machine-type valuables. Even if the valuables weren't suited to them, they could exchange them for military credits and obtain one that was a good fit. Hua! A cold streak of purple light fell on that plant life form, and it was annihilated. Only valuables were left. A strange beast soldier with 2 pairs of wings and a 3-horned head raced toward it like lightning. It was the fastest out of all the soldiers. "They are mine." "Who?" It flew close to the plane and immediately took all the valuables there. "Damn you!" yelled a furious voice. The strange beast soldier took a look and smirked. "Soldier Milky Way, I'm indeed not as powerful as you, but I fly much faster than you." Luo Feng raced toward him. "Really?" he said. Luo Feng immediately changed. The golden claw god disappeared, and Luo Feng turned into a silver-white flying beast, the Bib Bird. "Bib Bird," gasped the flying beast soldier, horrified. Bib Bird Luo Feng sped up, moving much faster than the strange beast soldier, and caught up in no time. Luo Feng's eyes were cold. After Xu Shong had died, he had gotten Bib Bird. He had already planned to get as many valuables as possible on the 3rd floor, so he had immediately transferred Bib Bird to Boat of Mausoleum, giving it to Golden Horned Beast for a trial. Golden Horned Beast had subsequently studied Bib Bird in the space of inheritance, where time traveled 10,000 times slower than in the outer world. It had spent more than a day studying it in the space of inheritance, yet, in the outside world, less than 10 seconds had passed. "How?" said the strange beast soldier, feeling tense. Usually, it took a long time for someone to fully comprehend a new machine-type valuable. How had Milky Way learned how to use Bib Bird so soon after acquiring it? Little did it know that Luo Feng had already achieved so much in engravings, and with the space of inheritance, it had taken him only an instant to fully comprehend it. "Everyone says you're powerful," the flying beast soldier shrieked. "I don't believe you're that more powerful than me. Go down." The Bib Bird caught up with the strange beast instantly. The wings performed the blade technique light of water and fire like a streak of light, striking the strange beast soldier, which plummeted to the plain below, forming a huge crater. Luo Feng transformed from a giant silver bird back into Golden Claw God. After all, Golden Claw God was better at attacks. "Die?" Golden Claw God surrounded the flying beast soldier, striking it relentlessly. The shadow submerged the flying beast soldier like waves. "How?" said the flying beast soldier. It tried to fight Luo Feng. However, once the flying beast soldier was attached to Luo Feng, it couldn't even run away because Luo Feng was so much stronger. Under the endless rays of blade light, the flying beast who had endured the 2nd floor of Wu Chi Tower lost much of its power was crushed. After only 30 seconds, the flying beast soldier was annihilated. Humph! Luo Feng took the valuables. Clearly, it was an elite soldier. It lasted longer than that true god from 9 Smoke Marsh even under severe injuries. The other soldiers looked on in amazement. In the past 30 seconds, a powerful strange beast elite soldier couldn't even flee. Instead, it had been crushed to death. Terror. Intimidation. A variety of emotions flooded their minds. This was the first time Luo Feng had killed a soldier on the 3rd floor. Xu Shong had been killed by the godly eye. By killing this strange beast, Luo Feng had made it clear to these soldiers that it was wise for them to stay away from him. The godly eye in the sky gave out endless golden light, and the power of its mental shock grew stronger and stronger. Only 15 can survive? The soldiers went mad under the suppression of the mental shock, and it was pushing them to their limits. They tried to fight each other harder and harder. The number kept declining. 20. 18. 16. Finally, 15. When there were only 15 soldiers in the area illuminated by the godly eye, the mental shock power had already reached the level of top-tier true gods, close to limit-level true gods. All the soldiers except for Luo Feng had found it difficult to bear. 8 million eras. Luo Feng glanced at the soldiers in the distance and sighed. Mental shock? Even a mental shock at the level of limit true gods was nothing to him. Back when he had obtained the inheritance from Du and Dong River, his mind had already reached true god level. For a long period of time, he had the space of inheritance to train himself, which was the perfect place to cultivate supreme beings. Willpower could also be sharpened in the space of inheritance. Luo Feng had spent more than 8 million eras there, improving his willpower from true god level to a whole new level. He speculated that his willpower had reached the level of a true god of void space. It was normal for true gods to have the willpower of true gods of void space. Even some true gods in Universe Ocean had achieved that, not to mention those in the world of Jinn. However, it was rare for Universe Masters to achieve willpower at the level of a true god of void space. I have the space of inheritance, thought Luo Feng. If I couldn't achieve it, I'd be a sorry excuse for an inheritor of Duandong River. Every inheritor of Duandong River could easily reach willpower at the level of a true god of void space when they were only Universe Masters. Hoa! 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 The godly eye vanished. 15 light pillars arrived, enveloping all 15 soldiers and transporting them away from the third level of Wu Chi Tower. Inside the Silver Palace next to the towering Wu Chi Tower in Godly King Valley, the 4 leaders sat on their thrones. They all watched the floating display screen which showed everything happening in Wu Chi Tower. Ha ha! He easily went through the third level, said the Black Mist. In my opinion, his willpower must be at the level of a true god of void space if he went through the third level that easily. His willpower is at such a level, yet he's only a law master. He's indeed exceptional. The silver-armored female leader said, look at the blade technique he shows while using Golden Claw God. It's so exquisite that it's at least at the elementary true god level. Body technique, blade technique, and willpower. He's exceptional in all aspects. He's definitely the strongest one I've seen since I became a leader. The leader stared gravely at the screen. I hope he can reach the top of Wu Chi Tower. If he can, then we'll finally live up to the expectations of His Majesty the Godly King. The other 3 leaders were silent. The expectations of the Godly King. All gazed at the screen displaying the scene of the 4th floor of Wu Chi Tower. The 2nd floor is for prizes. I wonder which prize that soldier Milky Way will choose. The 15 surviving soldiers on the 4th floor of Wu Chi Tower had long expected this. According to what Wu Chi Tower had told them before, there were only death traps in the first 3 floors, which meant only the first 3 levels would pose a danger to their lives. From the 4th floor up, there would only be prizes. They would be safe from now on. All the soldiers were full of expectations. Prizes in Wu Chi Tower? What kind of prizes? Time and space trembled. The 15 soldiers were transported to the 4th floor, and they all looked around. Huh? Luo Feng looked around, and the portals around him extended. On the walls beside the portals were many trees and bodies. It was as if their countless living and dead creatures were sealed on the walls beside the portals. A maze? Luo Feng thought. There is a portal on my left side and one on the right. The 15 soldiers glanced around, hesitant. None dared to do anything. Instead, they waited for the guide of Wu Chi Tower. A light appeared, surrounding the soldiers. Lucky soldiers! You're all indeed the lucky ones because you have reached the 4th level of Wu Chi Tower, and from now on, you'll be safe. No soldiers are allowed to fight each other. Otherwise, you will be executed. The first line of the introduction immediately relieved all the other soldiers. They glanced at Luo Feng. They weren't as tense or as frightened as before. Instead, they relaxed. There are many prizes on the 4th level of Wu Chi floor, said the voice. There are 4 portals around you, and they represent 4 different prizes. The one with dimming white light is the portal of valuables. Once you enter, you can acquire valuables such as machine-type weapons and valuables used to recover your godly bodies. The one with dimming golden light is the portal of inheritance. There are some special techniques through that portal, and if you're lucky, you might get some extraordinary techniques. The one with dimming purple light is a path to true gods. It will guide you on how to make a breakthrough and how to become a true god. That's the law path. The one with dim black light is also a path to true gods, but it's following the path of godly power. You will be stronger, but it's hundreds of times more difficult. You can only choose one of these 4 portals. The prizes you earn from those portals will decide whether or not you can enter the 5th floor. Choose, lucky soldiers. Then the ancient voice faded away. Luo Feng and the others all looked around at the 4 portals representing different prizes. A giant black snake strange beast with skulls crawled to the golden portal. The techniques in Wu Chi Tower must be extraordinary. With the special techniques, I'll be able to wield more power when fighting great beings at the same level. I've been stuck at Law Masters for too long a time, said a short tribal warrior. I must become a true god. The godly power path is too difficult, so I might not gain anything. He entered the purple portal. The soldiers selected their portals one after another. Some thought they could get guides on how to become true gods in the army, so they chose techniques or valuables. Some wanted to become true gods as soon as possible, so they chose the path to true gods. Though 8 of the 15 soldiers chose the paths to true gods, 6 of them chose the law paths. All of them knew that law paths were more common and easier, while the godly power path was much more difficult. They weren't even sure whether they could succeed on the law path, so they didn't dare to try the godly power path. After all, it was only a guide. The godly power path, said Luo Feng. I'll see what kind of special guide His Majesty the Godly King from the world of Jin has prepared. Luo Feng didn't even hesitate. He chose the godly path to true gods immediately. Valuables? He had acquired enough. Luo Feng didn't think he could get any exceptional valuables after only 3 levels. Techniques? He had plenty of powerful techniques from Duan Dong River. The law path? He had given up on that a long time ago. The only choice was the godly power path. It had been left by His Majesty the Godly King, so maybe he would be inspired. All the 4 leaders gazed at the screen. Luo Feng and the other soldiers stepped onto the godly power path to true gods, and they both sighed. All the leaders exclaimed their approval. Well chosen. The only precious portal on the 4th level is the godly power path to true gods. This is the great achievement of His Majesty the Godly King. That soldier Milky Way made a wonderful choice. Other great beings in the army didn't know about this, but they were the leaders of Godly King Valley, so they were responsible for guarding Wu Chi Tower. The ideal peerless talent that His Majesty the Godly King required would need to become a true god by following the godly power path. There was, after all, another way to prove oneself to be the peerless genius of the Godly King, which was to reach 90,000 times life gene level on the godly power path, and to solve all 10,081 Rhinoceros Emperor game solutions all at once. If someone met both criteria, they would be sealed immediately and would obtain Wu Chi God. Based on these 2 requirements, it could be inferred that the peerless genius the Godly King required should follow the godly power path. After all, when Wu Chi Tower was being built, only the godly power path to true gods was carefully designed by His Majesty the Godly King to help the successors. Luo Feng walked through the hallway. On the walls on either side, many bodies and objects were sealed as if they were specimens on display. Godly power guide? Where is it? Luo Feng kept searching carefully. Suddenly, his eyes gleamed, and he stared at a wall to one side. He discovered that those seemingly simple bodies and objects could be combined into an intricate engraving picture. Plus, some of the specimens bulged from the wall while some others were concave. They formed a 3-dimensional image. The 3-dimensional image inspired Luo Feng. Perhaps it wasn't clear to other great beings, but it was to Luo Feng. He had studied the structures of creatures using his remote ocean many times, and his godly body had already broken through the perfect life gene level. This is the most detailed structure of a perfect life form, Luo Feng said. He immediately memorized the structure. If someone couldn't understand the structure, then no matter how many times they looked at it, they wouldn't be able to memorize it. However, Luo Feng had already achieved a degree of life structure, and his studies were already superior to that stereoscopic picture. On the left, Luo Feng looked to the other side. When all those specimens were combined, they could indeed form a 3-dimensional image of a perfect life form. The one on the right is a flesh and blood type life form, and the one on the left is a plant type life. Luo Feng memorized them all and walked forward. On the 2 walls as he continued forward were countless specimens making up 3-dimensional pictures, and they were all perfect life forms. However, even though they were perfect life forms, there were some differences among them. Even the perfect gene structures of flesh and blood creatures had hundreds of variations. Incredible. It's so detailed. Luo Feng was amazed. He kept walking forward. After only a short while, he reached the end of the portal. There was a door at the end with an incomplete 3-dimensional image on it. Huh? Luo Feng smiled. Flesh and blood type? Luo Feng pointed and injected his godly power inside. He quickly completed the 3-dimensional image, forming a perfect image of a creature. He had studied countless perfect creatures. If it had been an energy-type life form, it might have taken him a long time. However, he was very familiar with flesh and blood-type creatures, so he completed it instantly. The wooden door gave out cyan light immediately, covering Luo Feng. Luo Feng disappeared. He's entered it. It's only been a while, and he's completed the task already. His godly body must have surpassed the perfect life gene level already, said the towering leader. Besides, he's following the godly power path. That soldier Milky Way is very ambitious. He doesn't just want to become a true god. Instead, he wants to achieve a higher life gene level. He bellowed out his words. All the other leaders were similarly thrilled. Let's see how much he can get. Even the leaders were not eligible to see the deeper area of godly path to true gods. Wu Chi Tower contained some great secrets. The 4 leaders could inspect it, yet they could only inspect a part of it. As for some special areas, like the 8th or 9th floor, they couldn't even take a peek. They couldn't inspect the deeper area of the godly power path either. It contained a huge secret. It was strenuous to become a true god, and the analysis of life forms was strictly confidential. Luo Feng had the inherited technique from the original universe, creation. They couldn't clearly inspect certain powerful life forms, and they surely couldn't detect a drop of godly blood on Shawu Wing. True gods of void space, and even eternal true gods weren't able to analyze the structures of creatures. The comprehensive 3-dimensional images were precious beyond words. Of course, they required understanding before they could be memorized. If someone couldn't understand the pictures, he wouldn't be able to remember anything. Those pictures of creatures were only an aid. However, no powers from the ancient civilization were willing to share them, not even Duandong River. Time and space trembled. Deeper down along the godly power route of the true god path, Luo Feng appeared out of nowhere. Huh? At first glance, Luo Feng mused, a river? Directly ahead, a passageway was there, as usual. The 2 sides of the passageway were also the same, walls filled with countless specimens. However, the wide yet deep passageway before him was a river. This? Luo Feng stood on top of the river as he looked down beneath his feet with astonishment. His godly power had reached out to detect, and thus, he discovered that this river contained an endless, mighty godly power that had no master. It was like the godly power without a master in the ocean law of the primal universe, where he could absorb it for his own use in whatever quantity he pleased. This godly power is without a master. And such a great amount of it. Luo Feng was pleasantly surprised. His godly body was as tall as 10,000 kilometers, while the width and height of the passageway were around 100 million kilometers. Its length stretched for tens of billion kilometers. Such a massive passageway. And almost half of it was filled with godly power condensed and gathered to form a river. That godly king has left so much unclaimed godly power here, Luo Feng contemplated. For those who remained here to comprehend, once they achieved a thorough comprehension, they would achieve a breakthrough in their godly body. Then, most certainly, they would need to replenish their godly power. Could it be for this reason? Regardless of the reason, if he let godly power go to waste without absorbing any of it, he would be a fool. With a move of intention, Luo Feng eagerly sucked up the godly power water beneath him. Earlier on, when he had been progressing from the 1st to the 3rd level of Wu Chi Tower, Luo Feng had indeed exhausted much of his godly power, especially because his earthling original body suddenly achieved a breakthrough in life gene level to reach 16,000 times. His golden horned beast body had to replenish the godly power that his earthling original body had lost. Thus, the godly body of his golden horned beast was always lacking a great amount of godly power. Since there is so much godly power, I might as well take it all in one go and enable my godly body to attain the highest life gene level that I have so far comprehended. Luo Feng hesitated no further. His eyes lit up. Godly body, reassemble. Luo Feng's earthling body was completely disassembled in an instant. It transformed into mighty godly power. Every life structure of this godly power was reconstructed. Then everything came crashing together rapidly to condense and give form to his earthling original body. Luo Feng's godly body was swallowing from the river in its surroundings like crazy. It sought to replenish its godly body as quickly as possible. At the same moment, Golden Horned Beast was also undergoing a reassembly of his godly body. Shortly after, it too started to replenish its godly power. After a short moment, everything came to a halt. Now, my godly body has a life gene level of around 28,000 times. But I am still far from my target. Luo Feng said to himself. Previously, when Hadbin was about to make his way to Godly King Valley, he had managed to obtain a large quantity of blood, scales, and hair samples from the endless remote ocean of the primal universe. That was when he had managed to achieve a breakthrough by comprehending the life structure at 16,000 times life gene level in one swift move. In the following period of time, as Luo Feng was rushing to get about places, especially while on the 3rd level of Wu Chi Tower, waiting for the other batches of warriors to arrive, he had remained in the space of cultivation where time was accelerated at a rate of 10,000 times. Even with time passing by so fast, Luo Feng managed to achieve multiple breakthroughs in succession and finally attained a level of 28,000 times life genes level. This was still regarded as reaching a small bottleneck within a short period. At that moment, Luo Feng was certainly making good use of the chance to absorb as much godly power as he could so that he could bring the state of his godly body to its strongest form in one swift move. Yet even with the inherited technique, creation, and a great quantity of blood, hair, and scale samples, there was not once when he was able to attain the first stage requirement of 30,000 times in one swift move. To be more truthful, Luo Feng was indeed a little disappointed. After all, 30,000 times was only the first stage. Life diagram. Luo Feng stepped onto the river of godly power and looked at the numerous complex, three-dimensional life diagrams on the two sides of the river. Blood and flesh type, rock type, energy type, metal type, plant type. There were various kinds of three-dimensional life diagrams, and they had life gene levels that ranged from 10,000 times more to 30,000 times more. The number was far too many. Luo Feng's grasp of the life diagrams on blood and flesh life forms was the fastest. As for the others, he was apparently much slower. In the first place, Luo Feng had placed emphasis on studying the blood and flesh type, while putting others on hold for the time being. But of course, while he focused on studying blood and flesh type, he would also gain additional knowledge about other life forms. Every day, time passed. As Luo Feng was studying these life diagrams in the faraway primal universe, endless remote ocean was also studying them. And in the space of inheritance within the space of cultivation, his golden horned beast body was constantly carrying out experiments. It had only been 15 days. Yet, ever so easily, Luo Feng achieved another breakthrough. His life gene level soared up to 32,000 times. This was mainly because Luo Feng had a good foundation to begin with. Originally, his life gene level was already at 28,000 times. And with a little more contact and comprehension, it was a matter of course that he would be able to achieve a breakthrough to reach the stage of 30,000 times life gene level. The lofty Luo Feng was surrounded by the surging river, which was pouring into him continuously. Godly body, stage 1, its height could surge up to 10 times. Of course, there had to first be enough godly power. Thereafter, he could absorb a tremendous amount of godly power. Luo Feng soared to a height of 1 million kilometers. Even his golden horned beast body experienced the same growth spurt to 1 million kilometers in length. Ha ha! Luo Feng laughed heartily as he stood at this end of the river's passageway. Similarly, there was a wooden door, and on that wooden door, there was an incomplete piece of life diagram. Still a blood and flesh life form? Luo Feng mused to himself. Could it be a test that His Majesty the Godly King set under that wooden door, based on the warriors entering? So if it's a plant-type warrior entering, the test at the wooden door would be a life diagram of a plant-type great being? Luo Feng did not hesitate and was quick to supplement this life diagram. This life diagram was at a 30,000 times life gene level, and Luo Feng was able to resolve it after a brief moment of careful contemplation. The wooden door released cyan rays of light that enshrouded Luo Feng, transporting him into an even deeper region along this true God path. Luo Feng appeared out of thin air. Right ahead, a passageway was there, as usual. The two sides of the passageway were also the same, they were still walls. The difference was that the passageway of the river had become wider and deeper. The three-dimensional life diagrams on both sides of the wall were more complex and massive. The first phase was perfect life gene level, the second stage was 10,000 times to 30,000 times. The third stage must be 30,000 to 60,000 times. Luo Feng's gaze swept over the surroundings. He found everything incomparably mysterious and severe. In the previous two phases of the passageway, I was able to pass through easily because I already had the foundation. This phase of the passageway, I don't think it will be that easy. Luo Feng flew ahead and looked to the left at the first life diagram, which portrayed a blood and flesh type. Based on Luo Feng's speculation, this should be a life diagram that had a life gene level of around 35,000 times. However, one look at this life diagram, and Luo Feng was stuck. There were many areas that he could not comprehend. If he was unable to comprehend it, then no matter how he looked at it, or even if he shut his eyes, he would not be able to recall anything. Only through thorough comprehension could he remember. Luo Feng temporarily put on hold the studies on the other types of life forms and specifically observed the life diagrams of blood and flesh life forms. For the first diagram, he stood on the river, unmoving, and for more than 3 months, he watched. As he was watching, endless remote ocean in the primal universe was executing the inherited technique creation to observe those true god samples of blood, scales, and hair, while his golden horned beast body was relying on the 10,000 times acceleration in time to consistently study and analyze the samples. What might have seemed like more than 3 months was actually a few thousand years. But he did finally finish a thorough comprehension. For the second diagram, Luo Feng stood and watched for more than a month. For the third diagram, he looked on for more than half a year. Luo Feng purely focused on the life diagrams of the blood and flesh life forms. From low to high, he observed. Thereafter, he would compare them with some of the life structures of true gods observed by endless remote ocean who was making use of the inherited technique creation. Then he would study them in more detail. Under 10,000 times acceleration in time, he continuously researched the different changes in life diagrams and the significance such changes represented. How mysterious! It was as though he was creating a technique. And Luo Feng's grasp of life gene level was continuously on the rise, too. After a year and 6 months, Luo Feng's life gene level had skyrocketed to 40,000 times. After around 80 years, it had reached 50,000 times. However, during the following 1,000 years or so, Luo Feng remained stagnant at this phase, unable to achieve a breakthrough. Yet Luo Feng could not bear to leave this passageway. This true god path was an incomparably precious plot of land. Even the pulse of Duandong River did not have such a detailed series of life diagrams to begin with. And he had to stay here to comprehend, because the moment he left, anything he had not comprehended thoroughly before would be forgotten right away. There was no way he would be able to recall anything. 1 era. The maximum time given to complete a mission to receive a title was 1 era. When the next era comes, it will be time for the next mission term. I have to try my best and put in my all to gain much more within this era, even more than what I have already gained now. Such precious life diagrams, all placed before me where I can view them to my heart's content. I even have the inherited technique creation. 2 great advantages are working to my benefit. If I miss such an opportunity, I might have to devote a period of up to 1,000,000 times longer in the future, or even longer. But still, it might not be as rewarding as what I stand to gain now. Luo Feng did not dare go easy on himself. Outside Wu Chi Tower, a warrior was removed and sent out. On the 3rd level of that silver-grey palace beside Wu Chi Tower, 4 figures stood by the railings as they looked down at the warrior who was being moved out. From within Wu Chi, the other warriors are being sent out one by one, lamented the burly commander. They have maxed out the limit on their period of stay on the 4th level. That warrior Milky Way had accomplished even more and can stay on longer. How rewarding it had been for him on the godly power route of the true God path up until now, no one knows. The other 3 commanders also looked toward Wu Chi Tower. They could not see what was happening inside. But they were all clearly aware that, since warrior Milky Way was able to venture even further along the true God path, it would mean that he could enter the 5th level and continue making his way to the peak. I wonder how much he can gain during this half-era. Luo Feng was not the least bit aware that he could only stay on this true God path for, at most, half a century. Yet it was pointless to know this because he was already trying his best to comprehend. And he was comprehending like crazy. It was his 4,200th year on this true God path. Almost at the end of the entire passageway, before an extremely large life diagram, Luo Feng stood unmoving. He had been standing there like that for more than 2,000 years. Suddenly, he smiled. The furrowed brows, previously so closely knitted, were finally released. Now, he was fully at ease. The moment he gained understanding, he was enlightened all at once. This feeling of enlightenment was immeasurably incredible. So, this is it. Luo Feng laughed heartily. His godly body disassembled instantly. Soon after, every bit of godly power underwent a drastic change as the elements crashed into one another and condensed together. At the same time, the surrounding river surged in tumbling waves. They too added on to the condensation of godly power. A towering godly body was continuously growing bigger. Very quickly, Luo Feng's legs had touched the surface of the ground of the passageway, and his head was almost touching the ceiling. Luo Feng's godly body stood as high as 100 million kilometers. His life gene level had exceeded 60,000 times. Even with a massive body of 100 million kilometers, it was not in the least bit cumbersome, unlike other kinds of massive life forms that could hardly move about. Luo Feng's current life gene level reached as high as 60,000 times. He had gained such a massive godly body, Yet his speed and agility, on the contrary, became stronger rather than slower and more cumbersome. His earthling original body and golden horned beast body had both reached their state of limit. Next phase. Luo Feng rapidly shrank himself and walked to the wooden door where he had used up some time to complete repairing those imperfections on the incomplete life diagrams. The cyan light shone upon him and Luo Feng was transported away to the other end. There was a passageway before him with walls on both sides. There was no trace of godly ocean water within the passageway, and there was not a single specimen to be found on the walls. It was just emptiness. Emptiness. Luo Feng was taken aback. This video will end here.